You're driving somewhere you've never been. It's late, you're running behind, and you glance down at your phone. There it is, a blue dot gliding down the street in perfect sync with your car. Every turn you make, it follows. Every street it knows before you do. You don't even think about it. Of course it knows where you are, it always does. But right now, something is happening under that blue dot that most people never look at twice. What's actually going on required a chain of physics discoveries spanning 60 years, two entirely separate theories of the universe, and clocks so precise they push against what matter can physically do. And here's the question nobody ever stops to ask. How does your phone actually know where you are? Not the vague answer, not satellites. The real answer. Because when you understand what's actually happening inside that blue dot, the physics, the math, the invisible chain of events firing in milliseconds, it's going to change how you see the world around you. Permanently. Most people, if you pressed them, would say something like, satellites are up in space. They see you down here. They send you your location. Simple geometry. That model is completely wrong. The satellites cannot see you. They don't know you exist. They're not tracking you or communicating with you in any way. Your phone sends them no signal at all. Here's what's actually happening. Every GPS satellite in orbit right now, there are 31 of them, is simply broadcasting, transmitting a signal outward in all directions, nonstop, 24 hours a day. Not to you, not to anyone. Just into the void. The signal contains almost nothing. Two pieces of information. Which satellite this is and what time it is. A name and a timestamp. That's all. Your phone is a passive receiver, like a radio tuned to a station. It picks up signals from whatever satellites are above the horizon, usually four or more at once. And from those signals, from a name and a timestamp, your phone somehow pinpoints itself on a planet with 500 million square kilometers of surface. That feels impossible. But the answer requires something most neighbors never connect to GPS at all. It requires understanding what time actually is. And that's where things get genuinely strange. But here's the mystery. Because even the basic mechanics demand clocks so precise they push against the edge of what physics allows. The answer is called time of flight. When a satellite sends its signal, it stamps the exact moment of departure. Your phone receives that signal a fraction of a second later. By comparing the satellite's timestamp with the current time at your phone, it calculates how long the signal was traveling. Light moves at 300,000 kilometers per second. Multiply that travel time by the speed of light and you get a distance. Not your location, just your distance from that satellite. You could be anywhere on of that radius. Add a second satellite. You're on the intersection of two spheres, a circle. Third satellite, you're at one of 2 points on Earth. Fourth satellite, you're pinned. I went through the engineering specs on this, and one detail kept nagging me. This system lives or dies on timing precision. If the time measurement is off by 1 microsecond, the calculated position shifts by 300 meters. Off by 1 millisecond, you're 300 kilometers from where you think you are. GPS requires clocks accurate to within 20 nanoseconds, 20 billionths of a second. That's how long it takes light to travel 6 meters. So, how do you build a clock that precise? And how do you keep it precise after you've bolted it to a satellite and hurled it into orbit? Each GPS satellite carries 4 atomic clocks, not 1 4, because redundancy is survival in space. These clocks use the quantum vibrations of cesium atoms as their ticks. They'd only drift by 1 second over 300,000 years. Somewhere above your head right now, a cesium atom is vibrating 9,192,631,770 times per second, keeping time so your phone can tell you the coffee shop is 400 meters away. Almost nobody knows it's there. But here's the problem nobody talks about. Even atomic clocks drift, just a tiny amount. But in GPS, tiny is catastrophic. Left uncorrected, even nanoscale drift would make the system useless within hours. So engineers monitor every satellite clock from ground stations and upload corrections constantly. That should fix it. Build impossibly precise clocks, monitor them, correct any deviation. Done. Except there's a problem no amount of monitoring can solve on its own. A problem that wasn't discovered by an engineer. It was discovered by a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland in 1905. The satellites are moving at 14 zeros in kilometers per hour. According to physics, the kind people in the 1960s called theoretical with no practical application, moving clocks run slower than stationary ones. What's most surprising isn't that the effect exists, it's the magnitude. Satellite clocks, purely from orbital speed, tick 7 microseconds slower per day than ground clocks. At the speed of light, that's 2.1 kilometers of accumulated position error every single day. You'd think you could just build that correction in and move on. They did. But fixing that problem opened something nobody expected. Here's what most people believe about GPS: that it's a pure engineering achievement. Satellites, antennas, signals, computers. Physics is for theoreticians. GPS is for navigators. That's wrong, and the error has real consequences. GPS cannot function without corrections derived from both of Einstein's theories of relativity. Not one, both. Special relativity. The satellites move fast, moving clocks run slow. Satellite clocks lose 7 microseconds per day. General relativity. The satellites are 20,000 kilometers above Earth, where gravity is weaker. Weak gravity means time runs faster. Satellite clocks gain 45 microseconds per day. Net result: satellite clock is fast by 38 microseconds per day. At the speed of light, that's 11 kilometers of error, building up every single day. The engineers solved this by pre-adjusting the clocks before launch, making them tick slightly slower on the ground, so that once in orbit, the two relativistic effects cancel out. They calculated the cure before the disease appeared. Here's the take that'll get some pushback. Whenever someone dismisses Einstein as abstract theory with no real-world relevance, they're not being skeptical, they're measurably wrong. You cannot navigate to a coffee shop without accounting for the fact that time moves differently in orbit than on the ground. Every GPS-guided ambulance, every autonomous vehicle, every rescue coordinate exists because relativistic physics was taken seriously enough to be hard-coded into hardware launched into space 50 years ago. What do you think? Was it luck or inevitability that physics this strange turned out to be essential to everyday technology? Drop your answer in the comments. Here's the deepest layer. GPS tells you where you are. But what is where? In the old Newtonian picture, space and time are separate. Your location is a set of coordinates. Time is a clock ticking in the background. They don't interact. Einstein destroyed that picture. Space and time are a single fabric. Space-time. Massive objects bend it. The bending isn't a metaphor. It's literal geometry of the universe, expressed in the way time flows differently at different distances from a massive object. When your phone measures timing delays from GPS satellites, it isn't doing simple geometry, it's probing the shape of space-time around Earth. The difference in how time flows at 20,000 kilometers versus at sea level isn't a nuisance to be corrected, it's information. The universe's own geometry, readable in the delay of a radio signal. One detail that stuck with me: the engineers who built GPS in the early 1970s had an actual internal debate about whether to include relativistic corrections at all. Some argued the effect would be too small to measure, so they ran the system without corrections for 20 days as a live test. After 20 days, the position error was already 2.4 kilometers. The physics was right, it was always right, and they built it in. Here's what GPS actually is: not a navigation system, not a tracking system, not a camera in the sky. A distributed clock, A network of 31 atomic clocks orbiting Earth at 14,000 kilometers per hour, continuously broadcasting the time with nanosecond precision. Your phone intercepts those signals, measures how long each one traveled, multiplies by the speed of light, and triangulates its position. Location is derived from time. Where comes entirely from when. The system works because the universe has a fixed speed. Light moves at the same rate for every observer, regardless of motion or gravity. That constant is what converts time differences into distances and distances into coordinates. Without the speed of light being absolute, the GPS math collapses into nothing. Something I keep coming back to. A GPS signal travels 20,000 kilometers and arrives at your phone in 67 milliseconds. In that same window, your phone is running apps, managing cellular signal, rendering a map, all of it invisible, all of it so fast it feels like standing still. There are 31 satellites above you right now, ticking in atomic time corrected for Einstein, broadcasting into silence so you never have to wonder where you are. Comment signal if you want us to go deeper on how military GPS precision differs from the civilian signal. There's a layer we had to cut for length. You've looked at that blue dot thousands of times. What you were watching was your phone listening to signals from space, measuring travel time to within 20 nanoseconds, correcting for the fact that time moves differently in orbit than on the ground, and using equations written over a century ago to calculate exactly where you stand on this planet. It's a clock, the most precise distributed clock ever built, orbiting above your head, ticking in relativistic time so that you can find a parking spot. And here's what that actually means. Every time you tap Navigate, you're running, without knowing it, the most precise real-time experiment in the history of measurement. You're confirming, in milliseconds, that Einstein was right, that time bends, that space warps, that the invisible geometry of gravity can be read in the delay of a radio signal from orbit. GPS didn't give us better maps. It gave us a way to read time at a precision nobody thought possible 50 years ago. It turns out time was the only map that ever mattered.